fans out there and anyone else who's interested. I'm reading, but this has also been reported in other sources. So Pacquiao wants to fight in 2024 Paris Olympics. If you don't know who Manny Pacquiao is, every boxing fan will. Widely considered one of the world's greatest boxers. He was actually a multiple world champion, but primarily known for the welterweight division. Um, and he's widely respected in the sport. He's generally considered one of with good reason. I'm personally a Pacquiao fan. I think he's a living legend. I think he's achieved huge things, inspired a lot of people, and I think he's transcended the sport in a way not many fighters have. And it goes without saying he's one of the most famous Filipinos, if not the most famous Filipino in the world. Um, but having said that, I've got misgivings about this move. I'm going to read out the report and then share my thoughts on it. So bear with me, it's not too long. The reporter isn't named, it's just from the Manila Times. Boxing icon Manny Pacquiao wants to extend his legendary boxing career with a shot at an Olympic medal in Paris next year. Philippine Olympic Committee President Representative Abraham Bambol Tolentino said on Wednesday that Pacquiao's camp reached out on how the former 8 division world champion could qualify for Paris. Just scroll down here, getting used to the split screen format. Um, the POC, that's Philippines Olympic Committee, Tolentino said, has started conferring with the Association of Boxing Alliances in the Philippines and the International Olympic Committee, which is supervising Olympic boxing while the International Boxing Association is suspended. It's a bit of a complex situation. Senator Pacquiao's camp reached out saying our Filipino ring idol wants to fight in Paris, Tolentino said, but the senator can no longer vie for qualification in the Asian Games in Hangzhou next month. I should say Pacquiao is also an elected politician, for those who don't know. The Asian Games, an Olympic qualifier, has an age limit for athletes at 40 years old in all sports, and according to Tolentino, Pacquiao, who's 44 years old, could qualify for Paris through 2 Olympic qualifying tournaments set in the first and second quarters of 2024. The third, Tolentino said, is for Pacquiao to secure a berth under the universality rule, which the IOC would grant. There are, however, only 9 places on universality at the Paris Games, 5 for women and only 4 for men, and I think that's across the board. So that's for universally for men. A close aide of Pacquiao confirmed that that the former senator is willing to fight in the Olympics and that they've already reached out to Tolentino. So he must no longer be a senator. I didn't realize that. I know Pacquiao ran for president last year and he didn't succeed. He came third, so maybe he's resigned as a senator. I wasn't aware of that. Tolentino also said that the ABAP, through its chairman Ricky Vargas, will welcome Pacquiao to the national team and will assist in his qualification. So it seems like they're very enthusiastic about the idea. Pacquiao currently weighs 66 kilos and has to choose between 63.50 kilos and 71 kilos that are on the Paris boxing program. Professional boxers have been allowed to compete at the Olympics, and in Tokyo, 43 of the 186 competitors were professionals, including middleweight bronze medalist Umar Felix Martial, who beat fellow professional Armenia's Arman Yachinian in the quarterfinals. Other sources say there was actually a Thai professional fighter who was beaten in the Olympics in Tokyo. I don't have his name offhand, but there's a number of things to consider with this. First of all, we're not talking about any professional. We're talking about Manny Pacquiao, who is an icon. He's one of the greatest boxers who's ever lived. I mean, that's generally accepted within the sport. Um, I have cynicism, I have to say. Some will say that the Olympics should be about the best of the best. By definition, therefore, you would have the best professionals in the world. But the whole point of the Olympics was it was originally set up in 1894, the modern Olympics, for the best amateurs in the world in every sport. Now, other sports, I understand, have taken on professionals, but boxing isn't like other sports. It carries more risks than other sports. So you can't compare it to tennis or something like that. Um, The obvious question here is if you have a professional, especially of Pacquiao's level, going in against an amateur, and it doesn't matter if they're a great amateur, they've had a string of victories in their amateur career, they are still ultimately an amateur. Now, that is not a level playing field. That's the obvious issue here. How can you have a professional fighting potential amateurs? Because unless you sort of section it off that, okay, only professionals are going to fight professionals, then inevitably that will happen. And indeed it has, with that example I mentioned with the Thai guy. But actually, it wouldn't necessarily be a foregone conclusion that the professional would win because they may actually find it hard to adjust to the shorter fight duration. I think in the Olympic level, it's 3 rounds at 2 minutes each, if I've got that right. Um, a professional boxing match is 12 rounds of 3 minutes each. So it's a totally different format. So, ironically, the professional could be at a disadvantage in that sense, adjusting himself or herself to the different rules. Um, but I just don't think, I just think it's absurd to see someone like Pacquiao getting in the ring with an unknown amateur. And I think it could damage his legacy. I mean, from his point of view, he wants to go out getting an Olympic gold. Pacquiao never went to the Olympics, as far as I know. I'm not sure what the reasoning for that was, actually. I've got a great documentary narrated by Liam Neeson. I'm not sure why young Pacquiao didn't go to the Olympics. Unless I'm mistaken, that wasn't the case. His great rival Floyd Mayweather did. Other great fighters great professionals, of course, Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, Vladimir Klitschko, um, Gennady Golovkin, I believe. Numerous other great professionals did have amateur success in the Olympics. Not everyone, but many did. Um, But I just think that is the obvious thing. It's not a level playing field. If you have a world class professional against a world class amateur, even if the amateur is a very good amateur, they're still an amateur. It's just it's almost like a different sport. Because the way I see it is traditionally the Olympics has been used. Okay, so you get success at the Olympics, and that's a huge achievement in of itself. Whether it be a gold, silver, or bronze is still a huge achievement. Even for many people, simply getting to the Olympics, getting through the qualifications is an achievement in of itself, even if they don't pick up a medal. So, frankly, I think Pacquiao's being a little, dare I say, self-centered because he's taken away potentially opportunities from young amateurs. And I'm a Pacquiao fan. I think he's a great guy. He's done a lot of things for philanthropy, and he's inspired millions of people. But I just don't see what he has to prove by doing this, other than maybe he just feels it's something that he didn't do, which was getting an Olympic medal. But I think if you are going to have professionals in the Olympics, and apparently this did change in 2016, professionals were allowed to enter. Um, it should be against other professionals. I just don't think it's going to be a level playing field. It's like the controversy over trans athletes, competing against women. Um, it's not wholly different because it's a different, an amateur isn't going to have the same physicality as a seasoned professional, even if they're a great amateur, um, unless they're, on roids, Ivan Drago style. I just don't, I have an uneasy feeling about the idea of professionals. I think it's potentially dangerous, and I also think it takes away opportunities. Um, I mean, you have World Boxing Championships at amateur level, okay, but the Olympics is special. Um, there's also the Commonwealth Games, which is a big thing, but whether they're going to follow suit with the Olympics and also introduce professionals. Anyway, I'm not convinced. I'm a Pacquiao fan, but I don't think he's got anything more to prove. His legacy is intact. In fact, he could damage his legacy. What if he goes in and he actually loses? Because he's not adjusted to this level of fighting because he is used to fighting long fights, 12-round fights at professional level. So you could ironically have a situation where you have a very good amateur who actually beats Manny Pacquiao. Then, that will, I think, damage his legacy, maybe a strong term, but it would be something like, Mayweather versus McGregor or Muhammad Ali versus Antonio Inoki. It's just not necessary. Um, why do great boxers do this? I just don't think it's necessary. Let me know your thoughts. But in my opinion, if you're going to have professionals at Olympic level, at least it should be against other professionals. The idea of a professional versus an amateur, I think it's unfair. I think it's just unnecessary, and I think it takes away opportunities. There'll be many people, especially in the Philippines, who adulate Pacquiao, and they'll be all for it. But I just don't think it's a good idea. Let me know your thoughts. Oh, and video. There we go. There's the arrow. Okay.